everyone, welcome to today's video on solving one-step equations involving multiplication and division. So what we're going to do today, our key concept is going to be that solving equations, all types of equations, is about using inverse operations to undo what's currently happening to the variable in the equation. And then for today, we're going to really focus in on the idea that multiplication and division are inverse operations that undo each other. So for example, if I start with like the number 5, and then I multiply by 2, 5 times 2 is 10, and then I take 10 and I divide by 2, I get back to 5. So multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 2 undid each other, and we just ended up with 5 like we started with. Okay, so that's the idea of undoing. And that's really what solving equations is about, undoing what's happening so that you can get a variable all by itself and figure out what it is equal to. We're going to be using variables, a reminder of the vocabulary word variable. Variable is a letter or a symbol that represents a missing value or missing values. So for what we're doing, there's going to be a missing value that we're trying to find when we solve this equation. But we're looking for the value of the variable that's going to make the equation true. So when we say we're solving an equation, we're trying to find that value of x of our variable to make the equation true. So for our first example, we have 4 times x equals 12. Something I want to pay attention to right off the bat is if you have a number, this 4, right out next to a variable. So that means multiplication. That means 4 times x. Just kind of a notation in math, a rule in math. So here we have 4 times x equals 12, and we're trying to solve for x, find the value of x that is going to make this equation true. So in other words, this is saying what number, when you multiply by 4, gives me 12. And if you can come up with that answer on top of your head right now, that is awesome. But either way, it's important you understand the steps because that's what's going to help you long term. All right, so we're going to look at 2 ways to do this. On the left, we have our flowchart method, which I think it helps you understand conceptually what we're doing when we're solving equations. And then on the right, we're going to think about like our balancing equations method, which is where I hope you get long term because that's going to be important later on. So what we're doing in our flowchart is we're saying, okay, we're starting with x, and then we need to figure out what's happening to x. Well, if I look at this side of the equation, what's currently happening to x is it's getting multiplied by 4. So that's what I'm going to write here. I have x, it's getting multiplied by 4. And then what happens when I do that? What do I get when I take x and I multiply by 4? I get 12. So to solve the equation, we're going to undo what's currently happening. So we're working in the reverse order. So to get my answer, I'm going to take 12, and I have to undo multiplying by 4. So we're going to ask ourselves, how do you undo multiplying by 4? Well, how do we undo multiplication? What's the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. So to undo multiplying by 4, we need to divide by 4. Okay? And that's going to actually end up giving us our answer. So we're going to go in this backwards order. We're going to take 12, divide by 4, and that's going to give us our value of x. So what is 12 divided by 4? 3. So that is our solution here, x equals 3. Let's have us do it with the balancing equation method. So I'm really going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to look at this equation, say what is it telling me, and then how do I undo what's happening. So this is telling me that x, my variable, is getting multiplied by 4. So I need to say, how do you undo multiplying by 4? You divide by 4. Perfect. So I'm going to divide by 4, and when you divide by 4, with the balancing equations method, what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. That's the only way you can keep it a balanced equation, a true equation. Otherwise, the sides aren't going to be equal anymore. On the left-hand side, this is 4 divided by 4. Remember, a fraction bar is division. I wrote it that way, but a fraction bar is division. What's 4 divided by 4? 1, right? When you take any number and you divide by itself, you get 1. So that means this becomes 1, or then we'd have 1 times x. But multiplying any number by 1 doesn't change its value. We just get what we started with. Okay, so when I divide by 4 there, that's going to go away, and I'm just going to get x on the left-hand side, just what I want. And then on my right-hand side, again, I have 12 divided by 4 because of fraction bar division. And what is 12 divided by 4 again? 3. So we get that our solution to this equation is x equals 3. Now let's just quickly check that to see why that's true. So what we're going to do to check that we have the right answer is we're going to rewrite our original equation, 4x equals 12. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in 3 for x. Substitute meaning replace. So where I see x, I'm going to replace x with 3 in parentheses because I know that I'm actually talking about multiplication here. So I'm going to have 4 times 3 and see, does that equal 12? I'm correct if that is true. So what is 4 times 3? 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so then I get 12 equals 12. Yay! That means I am correct. Because what I was looking for was the value of x that was going to make this equation true. Meaning that 4 times x did equal 12. 4 times 3 equals 12. Thus x equals 3. So now we have example 2. Example 2 is negative 6x, or negative 6 times x, equals negative 18. So this is the exact same process, we just have negative numbers, but we just learned how to deal with negative numbers, multiplying and dividing them, adding and subtracting. Nothing's going to change, the process is going to be the same, so we're just applying it with negative numbers. Okay, so both ways, I'm going to start by asking myself, what is currently happening to my variable x in this equation? What is my equation telling me? Well, I have x, and next to my x, I have negative 6. So when it's next to it again, that means multiplication. So that means what's happening right now is x is getting multiplied by negative 6. And then when I do that multiplication by negative 6, I get negative 18. So I'm going to take negative 18, and I need to ask myself, how do you undo multiplying by negative 6? Okay, the negative sign doesn't make a difference. How do you undo multiplication? Yeah, division. So you undo multiplying by negative 6 by dividing by negative 6. So then we're just going to do that. I'm going to have negative 18 divided by negative 6. Here I am dividing numbers with the same sign. Remember, when we're dividing numbers with the same sign, we get a positive quotient. So we're really just doing 18 divided by 6, and then our answer is going to be positive. Okay, 18 divided by 6 is 3, so I get x equals 3. Oh look, same answer as last time. So now let's do it the other method. I'm going to have you help me a little bit more this time. So I have negative 6 times x. What is currently happening to the x? Right, x is being multiplied by negative 6. So how do you undo multiplying by negative 6? Dividing by negative 6. Perfect. So I divide by negative 6. And if I do that to one side of my equation, I have to do that to the other side of the equation. If you want to draw this line, you're welcome to. If you don't want to, I don't really care if you do. But some students find that helpful. Okay, so what you do to one side, you have to do the other. And then on the left-hand side, I have negative 6 divided by negative 6. When you take any number, positive, negative, decimal, fraction, doesn't matter, any number divided by itself, what do you get? 1. Okay, so then you just get 1x, and 1x doesn't change anything, so we can just cancel that out, cross it off, and we're going to get x on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, again, I have negative 18 divided by negative 6. What did I just say? When you take a negative divided by a negative, we have the same sign. So we have the same sign, we're dividing. Is our answer positive or negative? Positive, okay? So then we're just doing 18 divided by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So either way, we get x equals 3. Okay, now let's check our work. So I'm going to rewrite my equation, and then I'm going to substitute in 3 for x. And then when I do that, on my left-hand side, I have negative 6 times 3. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18, because now we have different signs, one positive and one negative, and we have different signs, and we are multiplying, we get a negative product. So that is negative 18, and negative 18 is equal to negative 18, so we know we are right. Now let's look at two examples with division. So now we have example 3, which is x divided by 4 equals 7. Note, this is division. Why is this division? Because a fraction bar is division. And I'm going to solve this the exact same way. I'm going to ask myself, what is currently happening to my variable? And then how do I undo that? Okay, so currently x is being divided by 4. Okay, so then when I take my variable x and I divide by 4, I get 7. Okay, that's what my equation is telling me. So now I need to undo that. I'm going to start with 7, and I'm going to say, how do you undo dividing by 4? Well, what's the inverse operation of division? That's multiplication. You undo division by multiplying. So we undo dividing by 4 by multiplying by 4. Right? So then I'm going to get my solution by taking 7, multiplying by 4, and 7 times 4 is 28. My solution is x equals 28. Okay? Let's show that with the other method. So I'm just going to rewrite my equation but with some space. So I have x divided by 4 equals 7, and I'm going to ask myself, how do you undo dividing by 4, multiply by 4? Perfect. We undo dividing by 4 by multiplying by 4, just like we did here. So I'm going to multiply 4 on my left-hand side, and then I'm going to multiply by 4 on my right-hand side, because again, to keep a balanced equation, you have to do it to both sides. On my left-hand side, this means x divided by 4 times 4. So this is going to cancel out, so we are going to get x on the left-hand side, as we always should. And then on the right-hand side, I have 7 times 4, which again is 28. Okay, so x equals 28 is my solution. And then I can check that I'm correct. Let's do that quickly. So I would substitute in 28 for x, because I just found x is equal to 28. And I need to check, is 28 divided by 4 equal to 7? Yes, 28 divided by 4 is equal to 7. You get 7 equals 7, so we are correct. So now we have example 4. X divided by negative 5 is equal to 11. And we need to solve to find x. So again, our fraction bar means division here. So we are told that x is getting divided by negative 5. And when we take x and we divide by negative 5, we get 11. Okay, so we want to ask ourselves, how do you undo division? How do you undo dividing by negative 5? Multiplying by negative 5. So we take 11, and then we're going to multiply by negative 5. So we know this is going to be negative, and then we just figure out what is 5 times 11. 5 times 11 is 55. So our solution is x equals negative 55. Okay, and again, we'll try it with the balancing equations approach, where I do want you to get to with time. All right, so I have x divided by negative 5. How do you undo dividing by negative 5? Multiplying by negative 5. Great, we just figured that out over here. So I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation, because that's essential. Otherwise, the equation does not stay balanced, by negative 5. On my left-hand side, I'm dividing by negative 5. I'm multiplying by negative 5. Those are going to cancel away to 1. Then I would just get 1x or x. And on my left-hand side, I get 11 times negative 5, which is negative 55. So that's my answer. We can quickly check our work. Okay, is negative 55 divided by negative 5 equal to 11? Yes. So we are correct. So key concept again is you're always going to ask yourself, what is currently happening to my variable in this equation? And then solving an equation means, how do I undo that so I can get x all by itself, isolate x, and figure out what is the solution? What's the value of x that's going to make my original equation true? All right, great job, everyone.